Hey, what's up guys? Sloth King here. Today I'm going to be working on the Supra, and what I'm actually going to be doing is figuring out what is going on with my speedometer because it's reading that I'm about 10 miles an hour off from what I'm actually doing. So if I'm going 40 miles an hour, it shows that I'm going about 50. And if I'm going 70, it's showing that I'm going almost like 85. So from what I read online, which there's a very, very small number of issues that people actually post about this and have a fix, there's a spring that's inside of the speedometer that if it gets loose or if it gets worn out, it will misread however fast you're going. So I have to take out this whole gauge cluster to take out the speedometer and then adjust this spring. There's no like set way to properly adjust it so you know how tight it is. It's like a back and forth kind of thing. Like you tighten it a little bit and then you throw it back in, see how fast you're going. So it's going to be a very tedious process. And it's done this ever since I bought the car. I even replaced the speedometer cable, and actually I melted it by accident, but it was still doing the same thing. The whole entire thing going down, it just never read properly. So I'm going to be showing you how to remove the whole instrument panel, or gauge cluster I should say. If you guys don't know how to do that, I'll show you quickly how to do it. It's not too bad. You just got to be careful because this plastic is pretty old, and if you don't take out the screws, you could snap stuff, which is what a lot of people have done in the past. Alright, so I am recording on my phone, so if it's a little shaky or whatnot, I apologize about that. I'll be switching to my GoPro later on once we're digging into the gauge cluster itself. So without further ado, let me stop talking and let's dig into this. Alright guys, so let me show you what we need to take off. So this whole panel right here, this needs to come off. This is actually the easiest thing to take off. You have to take out your ashtray, and then inside, I don't think I have any of my screws on here actually. So usually there's a screw there, one or two up there, and then one over on that side right there. Usually take that out, and then this whole thing will slide out. And then right on top there is your light. So this thing just twists to the right, and then it will allow you to take out the light. Once you take that out, there is going to be one screw right down here. I do not have a screw in there. And then after you remove that, what you're going to do, you're going to pop this up from the bottom first. Pull up on it. See how it's like that? And then next, we're just going to pull on the edge of here. That will pop out. And then we're going to pull on this side. It's actually pretty difficult doing this with one hand. We're just going to pull on this. And then we're going to work our way back on this bottom piece here. And pull this up out towards us. It's mostly just held in by some clips, so it's not that big of a deal. What could make your life easier too is if you bring your steering wheel down a little bit. There we go. And now you might need to put your, if you have a manual, put your transmission in reverse. There we go. Now it's coming up. Oh, I forgot. Unscrew your shifter knob. Durr. This whole thing is attached. Alright, now this whole thing will be able to come up. And then, once you get it like loose enough, Jesus. It's harder than I remember. Oh, that's not supposed to do that. Dang it. Yeah, I'll show you what I just messed up. It's like this little clamp that holds his boot on. That's what was stuck. All right, once you pull that out enough, where your hazards are, there's going to be one clip right behind here. You're just going to disconnect it. Let me see if I can show you, actually. See that clip right there? The tab is going to be towards the steering wheel, if I remember. Yep, the tab's going to be towards the steering wheel. Unplug that. And then there's going to be the cigarette lighter plug right down there. So once you pull this out enough, you'll be able to just disconnect it. Undo that, and then there's this one right here. There we go. And then now this whole panel can pop off. And see what I mean about the what I just messed up? See that little bracket right here? It got stuck on, I think, the bottom of this shifter boot. But that's okay. I'll just find another screw that will go in there. Anyway, now that this is off, you have a lot more access to these screws. But before we go into that, there's going to be this panel right here. This will come off. You just need to unscrew. There's a screw right down here. And these are all going to be Phillips, by the way. Oh yeah, there's a screw right here. All right, once you have that out, this panel will just pop right out. You can grab it from the bottom, and then we don't need to disconnect anything, really. We can just like bring it out and just let it hang. And then now we can focus on the screws that we need to take off. If your trim bezel around the whole instrument panel and gauge cluster isn't broken, there's going to be a screw here. Come over on this side. There's going to be one right there. If I remember correctly, we might need to drop this climate control, which there's just these screws on each side, and then it'll just slide out. On the very top, you're going to see some cutouts. There's going to be a screw recessed right in here. I have a wrap on this, so you won't be able to see them. One here, one over on the right. There's going to be also one right in the center. If you follow it over, there's going to be one right in here, and then one right at the end. So once you take out all of those screws, that whole trim piece will just pop out. Then we can work on the screws for the instrument panel. So let me take those out, and then we shall move forward. All right, now that I got that trim piece off, we have more access. I just realized that on my trim piece, corner of it is broken, so I didn't need to take out that screw. But I think I do need to drop this climate control, because the gauge cluster, I think it drops down whenever I pull it out. So what I'm going to do real quick, now that I just remember that, I'm going to take out those 4 screws, and then we can take out the instrument panel or gauge cluster. I use those very interchangeably, just so you guys know. All right, now that should give us some room to drop that down. For the instrument panel, if you look right at the front first, these white tabs, that's what holds this whole thing in. So there's going to be a screw right down there, right in front of us, right below your clock. If you look right up here, there's going to be one right there. My tab is broken off, which sucks. I did that last time I took it out. There's going to be one right up there above the fuel gauge, and one right over there above the coolant gauge. And then after that, it will pull forward. You'll be able to pull it forward. And the tricky part is I might not be able to actually film it properly, but there's going to be a few connectors that you need to pull off. Once you get it out properly or enough, you'll see your speedometer cable. It's like this green cable or connector, and you like just squeeze on it and then you pull it off, and it'll come right off the speedometer. And then there's going to be a few clips on the back of the PCB that you just push in and you pull them out. It's really hard to even see when you have it pulled out, but I'll see if I can get some footage. So let me take out these screws and then pull it forward, and then let me see if I can at least get a shot so you can get an idea of what you need to pull out. Okay, so this is actually the easiest that this whole thing has ever cooperated with me. So what I did, if you're looking at the gauge panel, I pulled it forward and I tilted it back a little bit. Once it came out about like 2 inches. So let's get a sneak peek underneath here. So you see that green piece? That's where the speedometer hooks on. And then that green clip back there, it just plugs right into there. And usually that thing is a pain to like pull off, but you will see a connector right up here. You pull that off, you pull that like yellow one off, and then there's gonna be a couple over there, a blue and a white one, and I think one on the very far left side. So you just unplug those. Once you get those unplugged, the whole gauge assembly will come out. So let me unplug those, and then we will have the whole cluster out. All right, I have the instrument cluster out, and these are all the clips that you need to pull out. So there are 2 white ones right here. There's a blue one, there's 2 yellow ones, and then there's 1 brown one that comes out. And this is what the back of it looks like. So if it's sitting in the car, it's like forward like that. So this is where the white ones are. This is a blue one, and these are the yellow and brown ones. Yellow one here, yellow one there, and a brown one over here. And then, of course, the speedometer connection. And while it's out, you can actually replace your bulbs if you have any burnt out. So as you can see, there's 1 bulb missing right here. That's for my ABS light, which ever since I transferred over to the Drift Motion manual transmission, well, it doesn't have an ABS sensor on it, which sucks because I wanted to keep ABS on this car. So I had to pull the light out. That way it's not just illuminated on the dash. Anyway, that's how you take all of this out. All right, guys. So now that the cluster is completely out, we can head back to the house, and then I can show you how to just pull everything off, and then we can hopefully get this speedometer at least as close to the same speed limit as possible. So I'll see you back at the house. All right, guys, so I'm back at the house, and it's actually a couple days later, but I have the gauge cluster in front of me, and I have the guide up on the screen, which I will actually link down below in the description. But yeah, next I'm going to show you how to disassemble the whole gauge cluster, so that way you can get to whatever gauge you want to get to. And one other thing, I reread that post I was just talking about, and it actually said that your gearing might be a little bit off if you have like a different differential or like transmission in there. Pretty sure everything that I had in there was factory as far as like the transmission and differential goes, because the car was auto when I first got it, and it had a limited slip differential in the back. So it said that like if you have a different size tires, or you swapped out your differential or transmission, that if your odometer is off, then it goes back to the gears inside of either your transmission or differential. But my odometer is a little bit off. I didn't change anything except for the 5-speed transmission. It's always been a little bit off, so I don't know what's going on there. But anyway, I'm still going to adjust this, and real quick, let me show you this real quick. I was reading that this needle is supposed to be at 0 or right below it, but I tried pulling up like a bunch of pictures to see if anyone has like their needle in a different position on here, and I've seen a few where it's just below the 0, and I've seen a few exactly where it's at. So I don't know if it's supposed to be there or if it's supposed to be below. So that's a little interesting. But anyway, whenever we get to the adjustment spring in the back, I'm going to mark where it's at, just in case if something happens and I need to put it back. So anyway, let's go ahead and dig into this. First things first, focus on the back here. All right, so we need to take out these vents. So on the vents, there's going to be 2 screws here, and then there's going to be some pop clips on the side right here. Mine were already broken off, so someone already went inside of this housing. So we're gonna take out these 2. And yeah, I have to work, if you guys are wondering, I do have to work in my room right now because my workbench is a mess out in the shed. So I would normally be working out there, but I have to do it in here today. Alright, and once you take out that, this whole piece will just slide right off. And then what I like to do, I like to just put the screws just back in its spot. That way I don't lose them. And then we're going to take this one off, which it's just these 2 screws right here. This one and this one. Oh. Alright, and these tabs are broken off as well. I love when that stuff breaks. Alright, now to separate this whole white piece from the front, we're going to disconnect this connector. That slides out from there, and I believe this just pulls out. Yep, that just pulls right out. Alright, next thing, whenever these 2 pieces separate, because we do have to take off this plastic, but whenever these 2 pieces separate, you see these wires right here? These are for your boost gauge, like a security light, and I believe the backing lights, no, I think it's just a security light. Yeah, that's all it is. So you're going to take out this screw right here. It will come undone. Just put that one back just a little bit, because it's just going to be this one black wire that comes off. And then this one right here, this is going to be this blue wire. It's actually labeled security. And then we're going to put that one back in. And then now we can start removing the screws. There's going to be a screw here, here, right here. Jump right over here. Then we're going to, I forget if this is one. This might be one as well. We're going to take that one out just in case. I know a couple of them are for the gauges themselves. So let's take this out. This one's always hard to get out, so we're just gonna have to flip it over. And then it just knocks right out. And then now we're gonna go to the front. We're going to remove this plastic. What I like to do, I just like to grab a small flathead, gently pry up this gasket, and then slide that right off of there, and then now this whole piece can come right up. So let's remove this. Boom. That is off. And then now we can take off. I forget how that gets removed. I know it's something very specific. So let's go ahead and focus on taking out the speedometer. So it's going to be just a couple screws. We're going to take out these 2 right here in the middle. And then we're going to take out these 2 silver screws right here. Be careful with this. You don't want to rip off that copper. So put those aside. Ooh. Okay, yeah, that will just fall right out. So now we got the speedometer out. I gotta remember how to take this out. Like, we don't have to take this whole thing off, but I'm trying to actually remember. I think it's literally just this little screw right here. And then it'll just stay on that piece of plastic. Yeah, okay. So now this is free. Okay, so from this point, we really don't need to take this apart anymore. If we look, okay, so here's the adjustment screw right here. You see this tiny little hole? And you see these couple pieces of metal right here? It looks like little teeth. If you turn it sideways, you can see through the plastic. Might be really hard to see on camera. On here, this is where we make our adjustments. And you can only go plus 15% or minus 15%. So to actually tighten the spring, we're going to move the adjuster downwards, which decreases the speed that we see on our speedometer. And if we move it up, we're loosening the spring, which increases the speed. So in our case, or in my case actually, I need to decrease the speed on it, because if I'm going 40 on the speedometer, I'm actually going 30. So I'm going to decrease it a little bit. So I actually need a smaller bit. All right, so we need to tighten it. Let me mark it first. Let me find a Sharpie or something to just mark this. Okay, so I found a red pen that I'm just going through and marking roughly where I'm at, and that looks pretty good. I'll be able to tell if I'm going about 40 and it shows that I am going 30, it's a little over 10%. Alright, so I need to tighten this, so I'm going to bring it down. Oop. Come on. I brought it to that 2 clicks over. Actually, I'm just going to go in between those two. Alright, now that I've adjusted it, there's 4 teeth total. I brought it down to where almost the top tooth is touching that red mark. Right about there. So it's like 1.5 teeth in. So we're going to see if that does any good. So I'm going to go ahead and put everything back together. And then we can go ahead and test this out. I might actually have some time to go throw it back in the car. So let me go ahead and throw this all back together, and then we shall reconvene. Alright, so I got the gauge cluster all back together, and I actually have some time to run down to the storage unit. So let's go throw this in the Supra and see how accurate the speedometer is now. Okay guys, so I'm back inside of the Supra, and I'm about to put the gauge cluster in. And right now I'm losing some daylight, so that's always fun. But I'm going to try to show you the easiest way to put this cluster back in, because it is a pain in the butt. So let's see if I can actually get a decent oh god, oops. Let's see if I can actually get a decent shot for you. Alright, so for the gauge cluster, you need to connect the wiring first. So we're going to slip it behind the steering wheel like this, okay? And then tilt it a little bit, and then we're going to plug in our connectors. So hopefully you can see all of this. If not, I'm sorry. I usually like connecting the far connector first. Okay, so the first connector is going to be up there. So this first white one gets plugged in right up here. Okay. All right, got the first one in. The second one is going in right here. That farthest left one over that side is always the worst. After you get that first one done, the rest are pretty simple. All right, blue one is in, and then Yellow one is there. This other yellow one's here. And then the brown one gets plugged in right over here. So hopefully you saw all that. Now that all of this is in, I have to move my light, unfortunately. Just a little bit. So now we're going to go in from an angle. We're going to try to get that green piece to line up with that green piece in the back. So if everything goes smoothly, you can just kind of eyeball it. You can peek under here. See if it's going in right. This part is always like the hardest guessing game the first time doing it. You'll hear a click if you get it right. You can kind of guide your hand underneath to make sure you're lining up with the speedometer housing. Oh, there we go. And I think that's... Oh, that's almost in. You have to watch your vents too. Oh, there we go. Aha. So it barely clicks in. I barely heard a click, but if you make sure that these white pieces are flush, and also with this metal piece, you got to make sure this this little this tab goes right in there too. The tab is you can't see it on this side, but there's a little tab right here. You gotta make sure that just lines up, and then as soon as everything sits there, we can just anchor it down. Now I'm not going to put in all of my trim because I got to make sure that the speedometer is working accurately, you know. So I'm gonna go ahead and just put a few screws in just to anchor it down in some of the spots. Probably get this so it just sits in there as well. So let me do that, and then we'll go for a test drive. Okay, I actually lied. I did have to put this bezel back in because I need to compare what my GPS shows compared to my speedometer. So let me pull the car out, and then let's go for a ride. Okay, so hopefully you can see the speedometer pretty well. If not, my apologies. Okay, right now I'm going 40 on my speedometer. I'm going 35 on there. Okay, so I'm still a little bit off. No, I guess it just figured out that I have my ashtray out. Cool. That's annoying. Stop doing that. Okay, I'm going about 45, 47. On here I'm going 40. And I've gone almost a mile. And it just showed 1 mile, and I'm really close from being there. Okay, so the spring needs to get tightened just a little bit more then. 1.1, 1.3. Okay. So let's head back. I'm gonna do some more adjusting, and let's see how close I can get it. Let's see how much time I actually have to do this. So I'm just gonna go back and forth doing this, not to bore you guys, and then let's see if I can come up with a decent amount. All right, guys, so I'm back at the house, and I spent like a little over an hour testing everything out, and my speedometer is still off by a little bit, but I'm more concerned about my odometer. My odometer is reading a little bit faster than what it should be, so I'm putting on more miles than what I actually am. It's like every mile it's off by about 0.2 miles. I'm wondering if it's because of the differential that's in the car, because that's the one that was for the automatic transmission. So, and I'm also wondering if it's the transmission that I have, because the R154 it's from Drift Motion and it's from a JZX 110. So I don't know if there's a different like gearing ratio in there for the speedometer. So I'm gonna have to do some research on that. Now I did adjust my speedometer where it sits, like the needle itself. I got it right below the zero. So tomorrow I'm gonna run back to the storage unit. I don't know why I didn't update you while I was still there. I'll show you exactly where it's sitting at on the speedometer. So I think that might be a little bit off, and yeah, I don't know. It's just annoying. It's tedious. But adjusting that spring on the back did make it a lot easier for me to put that speedometer needle right underneath the zero, and now it's reading pretty close. It's whenever I'm going like 50 or 51, it's reading like 47, 48. So it's still a little bit off, but I'm thinking it might be the speedometer itself, or it might be the cable, because I had to use my old one because my new one, it fell on my exhaust, and yeah, so it got burnt up. Anyway, I'll stop by the storage unit tomorrow, just show you some stuff, and then I'll just end the video there. So I'll see you guys tomorrow. Hey guys, so it's the next day and I'm back at the storage unit inside of my Supra right now. So I'm going to show you where I adjusted my speedometer needle at. So let's go over this, and that should be about it of what I did. So let's do this. All right, so here's my speedometer needle, and I still have the plastic off. That way I can show you how I adjusted the needle. It was right on that line, that first big line right there. When I was going through adjusting that spring tension in the back, I found that the more I adjusted it, the more accurate the speedometer was. But I could tell that when it was going fast enough, like let's say I'm going like 50, it was still off by a few miles an hour. So I ended up adjusting this down right below the zero, and it's at the sweet spot. So if I'm going 40 on here, it's showing that I'm going like 39. All you gotta do, sometimes it's a little tricky to take off, firmly grasp it.
Firmly grasp it. Firmly grasp it!
And pull up on it. As you can see, the needle is off now. And then you just reposition it wherever you want. So I'm gonna put it right back where it was. Push down, and boom. And that's how you adjust it. Sometimes when I first took this off, it was really hard to get off, so I had to get like a trim removal tool and just pry up on this side while I pull on the opposite side. That way it doesn't break when it comes off. That's all I had to do. And I spent like an hour and a half doing this, going back and forth, adjusting the spring tension so it's tighter or looser. I got my speed kind of where I want it. If I'm still going 60, it's showing that I'm still like 4 miles an hour off, which is kind of annoying. So I'm thinking it might be a gearing issue. That's how I adjusted that. So anything else, my odometer is still off by a little bit. I drove around for a little while, and when it was showing that like, oh, I went 4.1 miles, I looked at my GPS to see how many miles I actually went, and it was like 3.2. Every mile, it's 0.2 miles off, and it's kind of annoying. Yeah, so anyway, I think I actually have probably like a gearing issue, either with the differential, since that is technically for the automatic, and I forget what the gears are. It's like 3.79 or 71 gear ratio. It's been a while since I looked into that, so I forget what it actually is. It could also be the result of this R154 that I got from Drift Motion. It is from a JZX 110, so I don't know if there's a completely different speedometer gear ratio or odometer gear ratio that they use in that transmission compared to the R154 that went into the Supra. To begin with, my odometer reading is still off, if you guys have like a stock Supra and you didn't really change anything out of it, and you notice that your speedometer is about 5 or 10 miles an hour off or so, you can go in and adjust that spring tension. Or first thing that I would do, I would move that speedometer needle like I did, where it's below the 0. That will adjust it. As long as your odometer is still rating fine and you don't worry about that, yeah, you can move the needle, or you can go in and adjust that spring tension like I did, and it will correct it. Yeah, I pretty much maxed it out. It got really close, and then I just had to move that needle. So hopefully this video helps you guys out, and it can correct your the speed that this speedometer is off by. And if you guys have any insight on my odometer reading improperly, please let me know below. That way I can try to fix it, or if I just have to live with it and then keep track of my miles, like on my GPS. Like I'll just hide my GPS and then just keep track of the actual miles there, which is kind of annoying. But if I have to do that, that's okay. Because now this car is literally just going to read that I have more miles on it than I actually do. But anyways, if this video helped you guys out, go ahead and leave a like, subscribe to see more videos like these, and I'll catch you on the next ride.